Good afternoon and welcome to the Midday News. Here's what we have in the bulletin. Your Wholeness, a response to criticisms over the hosting of a Dream Weekend parties in Westmoreland. Doubts over medical oxygen supply if cases continue to rise. Sports, Jamaica picks up second medal at World Athletics Under-20 Championships in Nairobi, Kenya. I'm Shane Masters. Here are the details. A warning this afternoon to young people to limit their movement and get vaccinated. This after the latest data from the Ministry of Health revealed that more young people are being hospitalized with the COVID-19. Sandy Williams reports.
Majority of the COVID-19 patients at hospitals are young people. Chief Medical Officer Dr. Jacqueline Bisesa Mackenzie says the latest data for the third wave of COVID-19 show that most of the people hospitalized with the virus are between 18 and 39 years old. Additionally, there is a 5.5% increase in the number of young people affected by COVID-19 in the third wave compared to the second wave.
This age group has always been the age group that we've seen the largest number of cases, but now the number has increased from 37.4% of total cases that we had in the second wave to now 42.9% of cases. And it does again suggest that there is a lot of movement that is happening in this age group, and this age group really needs to stop the various activities that is causing increased exposure and increased spread.
The number of deaths recorded in the third wave of the virus has also increased when compared to the second wave of COVID-19. However, most of the people who died from COVID-19 are between 40 and 59 years.
36.1% of deaths are now in this age group compared to 19.4% in the second wave. This is a very significant jump in the numbers, possibly because we are seeing a benefit in the over 60 age group where the proportionate number of deaths have decreased from 76.2% of all deaths to 56.4%.
Dr. Bisesa Mackenzie says most of the people who are hospitalized or have died from the virus are unvaccinated. Currently, only about 10.5% of the population received at least the first dose of the vaccine. Dr. Bisesa Mackenzie says vaccination is the only way to reduce hospitalizations and COVID-related deaths.
What we would want is for more persons to be vaccinated so that even if there is more cases, the number of severe illnesses and hospitalizations and deaths would not be going up as well. And this is why it is so important that persons become vaccinated so that they can decrease the likelihood of having a serious illness that will result in hospitalization and death.
Sandy Williams, TVJ News.
Meanwhile, health professionals are concerned that if the surge in the COVID-19 cases continues, hospitals could run out of medical oxygen.
IGL would have increased their capacity in order to be able to comfortably meet the demand that we had in March, April, and just going above that, they're able to go. Right now, at the present time, we don't have a problem because I've been checking with the hospitals and they have been working fervently. We've gotten a lot of new cylinders and IGL has been filling those cylinders. However, if we continue along this trend, and if we are approaching 1,000 persons in bed for COVID, and we have a good number of these persons being severely ill, it means especially that we will have patients on high-flow nasal oxygen that requires a considerable amount of oxygen to keep that going. So we are in a danger period, and we cannot afford to go more than where we are in terms of admissions, and we need to get those admissions down.
And hospitalizations continue to rise as admissions have increased to 564. 37 patients are critically ill. There are 11,126 active cases on the island. The virus has also claimed 14 more lives, increasing the death toll to 1,356. Meanwhile, the island's COVID-19 positivity rate now stands at 38.7%. According to the Ministry of Health, the country recorded 556 new cases of the coronavirus from 1,300 samples. The total case count is 60,488. Prime Minister Andrew Holness has responded to criticisms regarding the approval of a Dream Weekend party series held in Westmoreland recently. The government has been facing backlash following the hosting of the party series in the wake of a spike in cases in the parish. Amidst the COVID-19 pandemic and a rise in cases along the western belt of the island, the Dream Weekend series of parties in Negril, Westmoreland were still given the go-ahead. Data from the Health Ministry up to Thursday revealed that the parish of Westmoreland recorded 41 new cases, bringing its overall total to 3,408. Even before the party series, the parish's health department and the wider health ministry raised concern about a spike in cases in Westmoreland. At an OPM press conference last night, Prime Minister Andrew Holness was asked why the party series was allowed to go ahead despite the concerns.
Once we gave that period that we were approving small and large events and the approvals were granted, we thought it best not to withdraw the approvals.
The Prime Minister, however, noted that other measures were instituted to include tightening of curfew hours, which would take into consideration the hosting of those parties.
The curfews were set at 11 o'clock. We reduced them right down to, I believe, 7, and on weekends they went down to 3 or 2 o'clock. I think it was 3 o'clock. So we did reduce the parameters in which they could operate without withdrawing the approvals that we had given. Because then you would have the exposure of people putting out significant outlay of capital and so forth. So we had to bear all kinds of those considerations.
The Prime Minister says 20 large events were approved, but following the revision of the curfew hours, some event organizers decided to postpone or cancel their events. And it's time for a break here on the Midday News. Stay with us. More stories when we return. Welcome back to the Midday News. Reactions this afternoon to the announcement of 7 no-movement days. Prime Minister Andrew Holness announced that there will be no movement from Sunday, August 22 to Tuesday, August 24, then Sunday, August 29 to Tuesday, August 31, and again on Sunday, September 5. Both the President of the Medical Association of Jamaica, Dr. Andrew Manning, and President of the Micro, Small and Medium-Sized Enterprise Alliance, Donovan Wignall, are in agreement with the measures.
The data shows that these kind of measures do work. They have worked elsewhere. They have worked in Jamaica. The question, as you had asked, is if the measures will be enough. And I think that depends to a great degree on the level of compliance and enforcement with the measures that have been announced.
We have to be understanding as a people, as businesses, that if we don't do this, the consequences are going to be dire. The Prime Minister didn't go as hard as he could, and I think that is in consideration of my sector in particular.
Mr. Wignall is also proposing that businesses incentivize staff to get vaccinated. They were speaking on Power 106 FM's Morning Agenda on Friday. The Nurses Association of Jamaica is worried about the increased number of its members who are getting sick and dying from COVID-19. Patsy Edwards-Henry was speaking following the death of 2 retired nurses this week. Shamela Pullen reports.
At least 6 members of the nursing fraternity have died from COVID-19 complications since the pandemic started. The latest was Wednesday night. She's been identified as retired nurse Lynette Johnson. Her husband, who had the virus, died minutes after. Counsellor for the Borbridge Division in St. Anne, Winston Brown, told TVJ News that Mrs. Johnson was his cousin.
She was a very active nurse at the Presbyterian Hospital, and she has contributed a lot to the hospital and also to the community as a whole. It's very sad to know that we lose a couple in the community at Borbridge by the hand of COVID. And the community is saddened at the passing of both of them. He's a businessman in the community and creates employment for young people in the community.
Another retired nurse, Cicely Hall, died on Tuesday after contracting COVID-19. Nurses Association of Jamaica President Patsy Edwards-Henry says she knew her well.
As a young nursing student, midwifery student, She was the one that I spent 2 months with while getting my community experience. So that again has hit home.
The NAG president says more nurses are out now because they're sick.
Mandeville region has 14 nurses out. Percy Junior has about 8 nurses out. I just spoke to the director of the Cornwall Regional Hospital. They have 9 nurses out. 6 of them have tested positive. 2 went off sick this morning, and 4 from the accident and emergency went off today. So the number of sick nurses, that is on the rise.
She says this is becoming even more concerning.
What is happening in the island is nothing short of a war. It seems as if we're in World War III, and the nurses are on the front line. Nurses are becoming casualties of war. Nurses are getting ill as they are out on the front line. And it therefore means that the number of persons to take care of the populace is decreasing, while the workload and the number of persons being admitted to hospitals are increasing. So it is a cause for worry.
Shamela Pulen, TVJ News.
With the announcement of the resumption of face-to-face classes in the coming weeks, tailors and dressmakers across the island are hoping that business will soon pick up. It's the middle of August, and they say they are not seeing the usual back-to-school rush. Fashion Brown reports.
The closure of schools due to the COVID-19 pandemic has disrupted the school uniform market in Jamaica. Prior to the pandemic, August was known for the annual back-to-school rush, which would see thousands of parents flooding local tailors and dressmakers for school uniforms. However, just like last year, it's almost 3 weeks in August and business is still slow.
Right now, the tailor shop don't really depend on fast-going business. Just a look at take up a pants, take up one blouse, take up one something, and $100 and $200. Now back to school work now go on where you make a year-to-year money.
The story is that them paid the money last year for school fee and so on, make uniform, and them kids never went to school. Now some of them kids supposed to go to a new school, but they are still waiting because them said I'm not sure. But I must have a open mind that just in case I will get some uniform. But I can't live on that because bills have to pay every day.
The back-to-school period used to be the busiest time for Clive Robinson, who in previous years had to turn away customers as he had sufficient workload to keep his machine running until late at nights.
Last year was a little bit better, but I do some uniform, nobody turned up. They take one, rest leave here, pack up, Yeah, so, and this year now it's worse, I don't see anybody, with the 12th of August, I don't see where people are going to come from for a little better. I believe they're going to wear what they have, turn back out of school with the same one from last year.
The government is now suggesting the resumption of face-to-face classes in the coming weeks. However, some parents are still hesitant.
We try to pay the school fee, try to buy the books, because then we still use it online. But like the uniform and shoes and them something there is just like no make no sense. We can just buy a shirt alone.
I did the same thing too, pay a school fee, and my son only go to school 2 times. And from that, he's at home with me now.
The hope and pray, finger cross the school open.
Vashan Brown, TVJ News.
It's now time for the Business Minute. Here's Cody and Barrett.
In the world of business, the Bank of Jamaica said it will consider tightening monetary policy and will immediately implement other measures aimed at moderating inflation expectations. The decisions were based on the Monetary Policy Committee's assessment that while inflation is likely to breach the upper band of the target range starting from as early as the September quarter, inflation will gradually decelerate as the transitory effects of the COVID-19 pandemic fade. With the expected tightening of monetary accommodation, inflation is projected to remain within the 4 to 6% range over the medium term. Payment facility WePay Caribbean is expanding its footprint in Jamaica. The company, which is initially based in Trinidad and Tobago, has decided to relocate its headquarters to Jamaica. It will lease a property at Grenada Crescent in New Kingston and plans to launch offices next week. According to WePay, at pre-launch and with no advertising to date, Business take-up has exceeded expectations, with some 3,000 business and service operators using the platform to process payments. And that's it for the...
Now for the top regional and international stories. In the region, Bahamians will go to the polls on September 16, 8 months before a general election is constitutionally due. Prime Minister Dr. Hubert Minnis said the election was coming amidst the worst public health crisis in modern history, referring to the COVID-19 pandemic. He told residents that their next government will have key decisions to make in enacting a post-pandemic public health legislation, continued economic growth, and rebuilding and renewing a post-COVID-19 Bahamas. In news overseas, New Zealand will extend a nationwide lockdown for 4 days after uncovering several locally transmitted COVID-19 cases. The lockdown began Tuesday over a single infection, the country's first locally transmitted case since February. And new data suggests that the pandemic has led to academic and mental health issues in kids. Kaiser Family Foundation researchers asked more than 1,200 parents of kids under 18 about academic success, mental health, and childcare between July 15th and August 2nd. They found 39% of parents said at least one of their kids fell behind in school during the pandemic. More than a third of parents said that their child fell behind in their social and behavioral development. And more than 40% of parents said that their children displayed at least one new mental health symptom during the pandemic. And that's it for your top regional and international stories. We head to a quick break. When we come back, Simon Preston will have your midday sports report.
Welcome back. It's now time for Midday Sports. I'm Simon Preston. Kavian Carr picked up Jamaica's second medal at the World Under-20 Championships in Nairobi, Kenya, after copping bronze in the men's long jump final on Friday.
A personal best of 7.90 meters from Kavian Carr landed him a podium finish and Jamaica's second medal of the championship. Carr follows in the footsteps of Wayne Pinnock, who also took home a bronze medal for Jamaica in this event in 2018. Jordan Turner finished ninth with a best jump of 7.31 meters. The gold went to Erwan Konate of France, who produced a World Under-20 leading mark of 8.12 meters. Cedrica Williams finished 7th in the final of the women's discus throw. Williams' best throw of 48.65 was not enough for a podium finish, as Violeta Ignatyeva took the gold for the authorized neutral athletes team with 57.84 meters. In the women's triple jump final, Akeelia Smith finished 9th with a best jump of 12.91. Maja Askaj of Sweden took the gold with a jump of 13.75. Over in the women's sprint hurdles, Akira Nugent and Anika Wilson looked impressive as they secured spots into Saturday's final. Wilson won the first semi-final in 13.39, while Nugent took semi-final 3 in 13.02. Vashon Vassiana also looked smooth in the sprint hurdles as he booked his place into the final of the men's 110-meter hurdles in a season's best of 13.35. The 18-year-old will now be looking to become the second Jamaican after Damian Thomas to win the 110-meter hurdles title at the Under-20 Championships. In the half-lap event, Brianna Liston and Alia Francis recorded personal best times to qualify for the final of the women's 200 meters. Liston finished second in semi-final 1 in 23.18. Namibian Christine Mboma won in a championship record of 22.41. This broke Brianna Liston's record of 22.50 set back in 2018. But 3 minutes later, the record was shattered again as 100-meter silver medalist Beatrice Masalengi ran at 22.19 seconds. Francis finished second in semi-final 3 in 23.70. In the men's equivalent, there will be no Jamaican representation in the final as Brian Lavelle finished third in semi-final 3. His 20.71 seconds clocking was not good enough to get him a non-automatic spot into the final. Earlier, Shante Foreman booked her place into the final of the women's long jump after cutting the sand at 6.27 meters. This was the fourth best jump of all the qualifiers.
At lunchtime, Pakistan had reached 62 for 3 against the West Indies on day 1 of the second test at Sabina Park in Kingston. Kemar Roach has taken 2 for 13, while Jaden Seals has taken 1 for 7. The Caribbean side have brought in Alzara Joseph for Jamel Warrican for the second test. The West Indies leads the series 1-0. And that is it for your Midday Sports Report. I'm Simon Preston. Ashane, it is over to you.
Thanks, Simon. And that's the Midday News. I'm Ashane Masters. Join us at 7 for Primetime News. On behalf of the news, sports, and production teams, good afternoon.